Alright, today we're going to talk about array and vector in C++. So first of all, as what we have done so far in class is we are printing an array and we are actually using a parallel array to output certain things that match with the same index number. That's what they're called parallel. And since we have done multiple times of that specific type of array, I'm going to just introduce you or reintroduce you the basics of an array and a vector so that you have a very good idea on why we are doing that and how can we set up an array or vector. But also in this video I'm going to talk about it more in depth. How does it look like? How does an array look like in the memory of the specific computer? I will show you everything that can be shown in a memory. That's why we have address for everything in C++ because it is a memory management programming. Memory managed programming actually. So first of all, let's recall when we want to define an array, we need a data type, and then we need a name of the array. Let's say num, and then we need a size. We do need a curly bracket, and we use 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Alright, so this is how you define an array. If the size is like 5 and you only have 3 values in it, automatically the rest will become zeros. In order to print an array, or in order to print a certain array index or values, all we have to do is cout, right? Let's say I want the first characters, and don't forget the index of an array is starting from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 2, and minus 1. Alright, this is how you can extract a value in an array. For example, if I want number 5, what we can do is, as you know, 5 is the last one and the size of an array is 5, so what we have to do is 5 minus 1, which is 4. If we do it that way, we should be able to get 5 to print out. Alright. So we're 5. So let's do one more. Let's say we want 3 to print out. So since 3 at the position of 3, but in computer world we have to do is n minus 1, which is 2. So what we have to do is num square bracket and 2, you will able to get 3, 5 and 3, right? So what if we want to print out the whole thing? Should we just print out like that? Let's try. So you see a weird number. What is that? This is actually an address. I will show you later on how can you use this address and find it in your memory, because we're always saying like, oh, it is a memory, it is a data type int, and every single data type has its own size. So what does it actually mean? Where is the memory, right? I will show you later on exactly what is memory and how it looks like and how it looks like in a computer. So first of all, if we want to print out an array, the entire array, what we have to do is actually we do need a for loop, and we have to declare a variable which is I, and when I is smaller than 5, you still keep on going printing. right? std. So here's the trick. How can we represent the value, the index, in an array, since we are looping through I from 0 to 5, actually 5 minus 1, so it's from 0 to 4. And ironically, array is starting from 0, so 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is exactly what we want, right? So that's why, as we remember, how can we print out 3 and 5? We're using the index number n minus 1, and when we print the whole thing, n minus 1 is 0. So first one is 0, and then second one is 1, right? So all we have to do is we just put I in the square bracket. Then every single time when we loop through the array, we start from 0 and we end at 4, we will be able to print out the whole array. That's what we use for loop. Alright, let's see. As you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So that's the idea of an array. And this is pretty much what you need to do for an array. Same thing as two-dimensional array. It has to be starting from row to columns. So let's say I want to print out 2 rows and 5 columns. You just have to add like 2 extra brackets with a comma, alright? So let's do this. And then 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Alright, so how can we print that out? We know that we use for loop to print a one-dimensional array. When there's a two-dimensional array, that means there's like 2 loop inside 2 loop to loop through all those stuff, right? So how can we do that? We just define another array for j. We just do exactly the same thing again. And j plus plus. But we just need only one cout statement, which is that way, right? So that's pretty much it. When we print out the array, two-dimensional array, it will become like that. So we have 1, 2 rows, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns. So array I, the for loop I, will print out this letter 1, and then since the j is inside the I loop, so that means when this line is execute, it will print out this one, and that the second line is here, which will be saying we need to print out the j loop, and the j loop will become this one right here, right? And then we will have a new line right here, then we can print out the second one right here. Alright, let me repeat that again. Since we have 2 for loop, and we know that C++ is from up and from the first line from the top, and we will read through each lines, and then it will go back if there's a loop, there's a while loop, or do while loop thing. So we are having a for loop, 2 for loop, one of them is I, one of them is j. So we know that I will become our rows and j will become our columns when I is being run. And as we can see, num I, it will first run this guy, and then j is being run again, it will become this guy, 2, 3, 4, 5, and j is done because it will repeat 5 times, and after 5 times this loop is done, it will run this line, and this line is just creating a new line. And as you can see, I is less than 5. It's still less than 5, right? It will still keep on running. But in fact, as we know, the I is going to be the columns. I mean, it will become the rows. This guy has to become 2 because we only have 2 rows, right? So since I is still less than 2, it will create a new line. It will become this one right here, and we'll print out the rest. Let's try that. As you can see right here, it's gonna have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then it create a new line. It will become 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Alright. Let me repeat that again. If I put an array in this way, it may be easier for you to read. So we initiate an array with 2 dimensions. We have 2 rows and 5 columns. 2 rows and 5 each individual columns. And we are setting up with 2 arrays with I and j. When this line is being run, the I will represent this specific rows of the array, and then the next line is j. So it will run here. It will represent this one, this one, this one, and this one 5 times. When the j loop is done, because this is the restrictions, right? It only goes up to less than 5. So when this column is done, it will go to the next line, which is creating a new line. And since the I for loop, the restriction is less than 2, and each time it runs, it will plus 1. So 0 plus 1 is 1, and it did not fulfill this requirement. It will still keep on going. That's why it jumps to the second rows. All right. That's why this is the way how you print out 2-dimensional array. All right. So let me introduce you vector. Since vector is a function, all we have to do is add the library. To define a vector, all you have to do is that way. Std vector int name. The name is like num. This is how you create a vector. And unlike array, vector can have unlimited, like it can be resized, it can be string, it can be add. So it is more flexible compared to the array. And remember, I'm not using namespace std. If you have this line, all you have to do is just type vector int another name, and then 1, 2, 3, I don't know, something like that. It's just exactly the same thing, but since I did not use the namespace, that's why I have to use std. It's just a personal preference, so it depends on what you like to do. The idea of a vector is very similar. It's pretty much identical with the array. So in order to print out the vector, all we have to do is like the for loop, right? But since you have seen that way, like the regular for loop int I equal to 0 and I is less than certain amount of numbers, and I plus plus, let me introduce you another way of printing a vector. It is called for loop range base. What does it mean is we just use auto x colon num and then cout x. This is exactly the same way how you print out a for loop, but it's just another way to print it. This is a range based for loop. And what does it mean is we are using I, and I is going to represent num in each single index. Alright, it's going to loop through num every single index. That's why you can print out the entire array, vector. Let's do it. As you can see, 1 2 3 4 5, it is exactly the same thing. Alright, so let's try how can we add a number into an array. As you remember, we did talk about adding a number into an array is by push back. So how can we do that? So by pushing back, that means you're adding a number towards the end of the array. All we have to do is we call the vector name, which is num dot push back, and you just add a number like 10. That's it. So in order to see it, we did add a 10 into an array, into a vector. Let's print that out. As you can see, 10. Alright, so that is how you can add an array, add a new value to a vector. So actually, let me talk you something a little bit more for vector. If you have a pretty decent size, like small size vector, you can actually sort the vector by the member functions. But I think it is not a member functions. You have to add another algorithm library to do that. But it's very simple. Let me show you. Just sort bracket num dot begin num dot end. Then actually this is the way how you sort a vector in a simple way if it is small enough. Alright, so you are calling sort function from algorithm, and what it does is it takes the whole vector, and you're saying, hey, from the beginning of the vector and the end of the vector, please sort the whole entire vector into ascending orders. So let me put it this way, and then we have another loop so we can compare. And let's print out before and after. Before and after. Let's do a new line. You see, before the entire values is like, and all the values are in a mess, but after you sort it by the algorithm function, it's presenting beautifully. Alright, this is another way of doing stuff. I personally like I love vector than array because it has a lot of functions, but I'm not saying array does not have its own library. It does have its own library, but the way to use the array library, you have to type array and then arrow the data type size and then the number of the array, and then you need to give him a name like num2, This is another way of creating an array, but I don't think you guys are gonna use that. So it's just personal reference and preference. It depends on what you want to do. And by using the library array, you actually have more access to the member functions. What I mean by that is, if you go online, array library, C++, you can see that you see the whole bunch of functions right here. You can do all those stuff, but I'm not going to teach you right here, so you have to figure it out by yourself. Alright, so that is pretty much it about the array and vector, but as I guarantee I'm going to let you to see some in-depth of an array. How does it look like in a memory? Let's define an array. Int array, num, I have 5, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? But for sake of time, I did something like that. So this is what I want to show you. So I have defined like 1, 2, 3 array. One of them is int, both of them are char. And the char, it has a lowercase and an uppercase. All of them are the size of 5. And lowercase is A, B, C, D, E, uppercase as well, but it is in the uppercase. So to print an address, you just have to put n of that specific variable, so you can get the address. So for the last two lines, what does it mean? What I'm doing here is to get the size of the int and get the size of a char. So when I'm gonna run this array, you will see the size and you will see the address for these three specific array. So what does memory? Memory in a computer is called RAM, and what does RAM look like? Those are RAM. You see those little boxes? Those are RAM. So you have DDR3 is an old one. DDR4 is the latest one. So it is pretty much the speed and how it is going to parallel for each stack, and each stack has its own speed. And DDR3 or 4, it's just another speed. But I'm not going to go in depth of it because it has a lot to do with numbers and latencies and all those stuff and voltage. I'm not going to go through that. But this is how it looks like in RAM, for RAM. So as of now, we define 3 arrays, and it will store in our memory or in our computer. So let's compile it, and then let me show you. As you can see, there's like 1, 2, 3 address, and the size of an int is 4, the size of a char is 1, right? So let me show you how does it look like in our computer. So this is the memory, right? The array of an int. This is the address. Let's search 007 AFC4C. What can you see right here? Oops. Or we can type the array name. So we have 1, we have 2, we have 3, we have 4, we have 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is our value, and this is how it looks like in a memory. This is the memory address. It matches with the array that we print out for that specific array address. So it match, and the values match too. So this is how it looks like in our memory. So you should wondering why there's like 1, 2, 3, 4. Why there's 4 space for each specific values? How's that? Why? Well, What is the size of an int? The size of an int is 4. That means it will take up 4 places in our RAM, alright? That is the reason why. So what about the lowercase? Let's search. Alright, as you can see, 61, 62, 63, 45, right? What does it mean? Why is not A, B, C, D, E? Why? I think you shouldn't ask why. You should ask what you have learned about computer. Computer can't read A, B, C, D, E. They can read only numbers, right? So that means 61, 62, 63, 64, 65 is actually representing A, B, C, D, E in lowercase. But let's do some math. We have to convert that numbers to the letters to characters, right? So all we have to do is 16 times 16 times 6, the first numbers, and plus 1. And plus 1. So 16 times 6 is 96, and 96 plus 1 is 97, right? So does 97 represent A in the lowercase? You might think, no, come on, dude. But if we refer back to the ASCII code, ASCII table, and what we have is 97. 97 is right here, and it is represented lowercase a. As you can see, 97 is representing A, but in computer this is a hex code. The hex code of 61 is representing A. Alright? So as you can figure it out, 97 is A, then 98 has to be B. So 16 times 6 plus 2 is equal to 96, plus 2 is equal to 98. Let's see, 98. Alright, yeah, 98 is B. 98 is 62, 62 is is B. Alright. This is how the memory works. Let's check uppercase. Uppercase is 41, 42, 43, 44, and 5. So what we have to do is 16 times 4 plus 1. 16 times 4 is 64, right? 64 plus 1 is 65. So 65 is representing uppercase A. 65 right here is representing an uppercase A. So that means A, uppercase A in computer means 64 in decimal place, and hexamal is like 41, alright? So that's means 42 is B. It matches our values in our array, alright? So this is actually how hackers work. They hack into the memories and they change the values, and when they change the values, and since the computer is connected to the internet, and when the servers is reading the code, it reads something out instead of the original code. That's why some people crack the software or crack the password by doing so. But I'm not going to go in depth of those stuff. So that is it. This is how you can read a memory table from an array in a computer, and what does the value looks like, and how do you find the values from those numbers. Alright, so that is it, and thank you for watching. I will see you guys soon. Bye bye.